Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is Kim Spoonhauer. I'm the Associate Program Monitor at OVS. I'm joined by the Program Monitors, Darcy Blake, Valerie Roberts, and Jirza Colleton. They'll be providing you with a lot of information today about the new reporting forms. Before we begin, it's always important to remember who we are, and so I'd like to review the OVS mission. We do three things. We provide compensation to innocent victims of crime for out-of-pocket expenses directly related to that crime. We provide direct services to crime victims through a network of victim service programs such as yours, and we are the chief advocate for crime victims in New York State. The reason I always like to address our mission before we begin is that you are part of the OVS mission. Without you, we could not be successful. So we are here to help you become successful in the new federal reporting requirements. Since VOCA was created in 1984, OVS has been the state administrator of those funds. As stewards of the funds, we must assure that they are spent appropriately and ask you for documentation for OVS that New York State is in compliance and that we are providing services according to the rules, regulations, and guidelines that OVC, the Federal Office for Victims of Crime, created. The new reporting form is part of an upgrade to statistical collection that's taken more than 20 years to complete. The old quarterly report form that you all use, currently use, was created in the mid-90s, I think, maybe the early 90s, and it's been collecting data which you all have told us is not complete. It doesn't give us an accurate representation of what you, our funded victim assistance programs, are providing. So the new federal reporting document will give you an opportunity to finally showcase all of the things that your agency does. Not just the number of victims that you serve, but the number of services that you provide to those victims. OVC has been informing you about the changes in the federal reporting requirements for well over a year. We sent out draft materials. We asked you to review it. We asked for your comments. Your comments were collated and sent on to the federal partners so that some of the changes that were made from the original document to this final reporting document is directly related to the comments that we received from the field. So you've had an opportunity to review the documents, make your comments, and now we're going to show you the final product. In September, OVS received the final report and the requirements by OVC. And we were instructed then, in late September, that the new reporting requirements would begin officially October 1, 2015. Now, some of you are, the first thing I want to remind you is don't panic. We know that today is the 18th of November, and this is the first time that some of you are aware of the new report. We understand that the first quarter, October, November, and December, is going to be difficult to capture all of the data elements that are required by the new reporting form. We understand that, OVC understands that, we want you to understand that. But it doesn't give you license to not report something. You still got monthly objectives, and you'll be asked to put that information on the new reporting form and upload it to the new PMT system. I know change is difficult for some of us. It's difficult for me. It's going to be difficult for you. But one of the ways that you'll successfully embrace this change is if you stop what you're doing, forget everything that you know, and listen today like this is the very first time you've heard about reporting requirements. You know, so many times when we come out and do site visits with programs, we hear, well, that's not the way I was taught, or that's not how we used to do it. Well, we understand that the new report is not the way you used to do it, but it is the way that you will be required to do it going forward. So please keep that in mind, that you have to let go of some of the old things that you know to be able to embrace the new reporting form, which will be required. It's not optional. It's your obligation to provide the statistics in the format that OVS prescribes. One of the things we've talked about over the years is the report form itself. You've all said to us at one time or another that wouldn't it be nice if we could take the monthly reports, add them up, and produce the quarterly report. And up until now, the monthly and the quarterly report captured separate data. But you've finally gotten your wish, and you will now only have one report to complete on a monthly basis, which will compute your quarterly statistics, which you'll upload to PMT. So if you put in your monthly statistical information every month, it will automatically calculate the quarterly numbers that it will be required to upload to PMT. So I think that there are some good outcomes to the change. One of the things that we'll have to be mindful of are the due dates. Once you get the new reporting form, you'll be required to submit it to us, OVS, by the 20th of every month. And you'll be required to go into PMT, which is the Federal Performance Measure Tracking System, which is an online data collection system, and enter the numbers from the quarterly tab on the new report form. And you'll see that in a few minutes when we start talking about the actual report. All you'll have to do is take the numbers that are calculated automatically for you on that quarterly tab and add it to the PMT system. But that has to be done by the 20th of every month because we have to go in and verify that that is the number, that those are the numbers that you've uploaded. So we have to have enough time to be in compliance with our federal reporting requirements. So the new reports will now be due the 20th of every month. We also know that you're going to get the report in the next few weeks, and you must begin using it January 1. But we want you to go back and enter the data onto the new form that you would send us on your monthly report. So for October, November, and December, we'll be able to capture at least the data that you're already collecting, and you'll be able to upload that to PMT. If you have other information that you can share with us, other documentation that you track for whatever reason, and you can add that to the report, that would be wonderful. But at a minimum, you should be able to upload on by January 20th, all of the information that you would have sent to us for October, November, and December on your monthly report form. We know this is new. We know that it will be a challenge for some of you. We know that for some of you it will be a relief because you'll finally get to put everything that you do for victims on one report form. We are here to help you. The monitor staff has worked diligently at looking at the new report form, helping to create the new performance report that you'll have to fill out every month. They know the definitions and they know about the services, and they are your experts. So if you ever have any issues, questions, concerns, you can always call your program monitor and discuss it. Now, for some of you out there, you may not have a program monitor because we have a vacancy. In that case, you can call me until a replacement is hired. But please reach out to the monitor staff to discuss your concerns. We will be taking questions today. We'll answer them as we go along, probably in the presentation. If there's some that we don't get to, we'll answer them at the end. We'll go over your questions. But what we will do is create a frequently asked questions document that we will post to the website, and we'll continue to update as your questions come in. So if you ever have any issues, you might want to check our website sometime next week and look for the webinar, look for the documents that we're handing out today, and look for the frequently asked questions document so that you can go in and see if the question's already been asked and answered. I can't stress enough that you should not panic. We will help you succeed. You are part of our mission. We're here to help you succeed. And it's very important that we are in compliance as a state. So the due dates, the reporting requirements, while they're changes, they're required. They're not optional. We must do it. We know that for some of you with large case management systems and case tracking documentation, there may be some issues in getting your tracking system updated to capture all of the data elements. We'll work with you specifically to get a date certain when you can have those changes made, but it doesn't excuse anyone from completing the required documentation. We thank you because you've been very good about getting your reports to us mostly on time, but we're glad to work with you together to make sure that New York State remains in compliance. What I'll do now is hand it over to the monitors who will go through the details, and I'll turn it over first to Darcy Blake. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. As Kim stated, there will no longer be two reports, the monthly report and the quarterly report, which is required by OVS. Now with the OVS report and requirements, the subgrantee performance measure report will capture the number of victims your program serves, the number of occurrences in direct service, and also the end-of-year performance-based questions. In the files that were provided to you, you'll find a copy of the subgrantee performance measure report. Also, you're going to find what we created, the OVS track-in form. And that form looks like what's up on the screen right now. Now, the files you'll see, there's three different files that are labeled track-in form. One is monthly report, one is quarterly, and then there's an annual. When you receive this report by December 20th from your program monitor, it will be this Excel spreadsheet. The only reason you have three in the file right now is to show you a little bit of a difference between them. Now, OVS has created this track-in report to better assist programs in tracking necessary data and allow OVS to continue to monitor certain aspects of your contract. Now, please continue to complete the present monthly objective report until then, which most of you have been sending in. As Kim stated, once you do receive this report, by January 20th, we'll want you to have gone back and also included the information for October, November, and December to the best of your ability. Now, this form will accrue the information that's required monthly, and then it will accrue it for the quarters. So, for instance, if in October one individual received services, November 2, and then December 3 individuals received services. It will be accrued, so then your quarterly report will already have the information. You will no longer need to provide that information. What you will need to do, though, with the information on this track-in form is enter your quarterly numbers onto the performance measure track-in report. So the months will accrue for your quarters, and then the quarters will accrue for your annual report. The only thing you'll need to enter at the end of the federal fiscal year on your annual report are the questions at the end, the performance-based questions at the end of the report. Show you what that looks like. So the questions at the end. Those you will need to complete. Everything else will be already completed for you. Now, as Kim stated, this report will be due to us still monthly by the 20th of the following month. please, the report is in Excel, so this report must be saved as for each subsequent month, so October, then November, and so on, or it will not auto-populate total for the quarterlies. Okay, so let's take a look at the report. I'm going to go over section 1 of the report, which is the demographics. So the first question is the total number of individuals who receive services during the reporting period. This is a total of both primary and secondary victims. You will no longer be required to separate primary and secondary victims. This number should be an unduplicated count of people served during a single reporting period, regardless of the number of services they received or victimization types with which they presented. Now, we do know that some programs are unable to provide an unduplicated count for reasons such as they may have an anonymous hotline. They are unsure if that call that comes in on the hotline is already an individual who is receiving services from them. If you know that your agency is not able to provide a unique count of individuals served within the reporting period, report the number of individuals served to the best of your knowledge, and check the box to indicate that this number may count some individuals more than once. It should be right here. Question 2, is your agency able to track individuals throughout the federal fiscal year? Answer yes to this question if, during each quarter and from one quarter to the next throughout the entire federal fiscal year, you will be able to identify individuals as either new or continuing since the quarter. For example, if you can track from quarter 1 through quarter 3, and not just from quarter 1 to quarter 2, answer yes, and proceed to question 4. If no, proceed to question 3. So if you answered no in question 2, question 3 is your agency able to identify new individuals who did not receive services from your agency during the previous reporting period? Answer yes if you're able to track clients from one reporting period to the next, even if you cannot track clients from the beginning to the end of the federal fiscal year. So if you're able to track clients from quarter 1 to quarter 2, but maybe not quarter 3 and so on, then the answer is yes. If no, other reason, please provide an explanation in the box below. If no, not tracked, proceed to question 6. Regardless if you indicated no, not tracked, or no other reason, continue to question 6. Now, when we created this form, our hope was to be able to capture all of the information monthly to auto-populate for the quarterly report for you. However, question 2 and question 3, they can't auto-populate because it's a yes or no question. So bear in mind, when the information that you'll be entering from your quarterly report onto the performance measure tracking report, you'll need to answer that on the report. It won't show up on the quarterly report that we've created for you. As you see, it goes from question 1 to question 4. But just, as I said, remember when you're entering the information from this report onto the performance measure tracking report, answer question 2 and 3.
Darcy, can I just interject? One other unique change this year with the new reporting requirements is that the federal government has decided that each October, every victim will become new again. So if you serve somebody in September, and they come back in October, beginning October 1, everybody that comes into your office becomes a new client again. So that's something that will be happening, which is different. They're really looking at information for that quarter, or for that federal fiscal year, and so they want to make sure that everybody starts out new again as of October 1st.
Thanks, Kim. Now going down to question 4. So if you answered yes in question 2, you're now to question 4. If you answered no, you would have answered question 3 and proceeded to question 6. But for question 4, number of new individuals who received services from your agency for the first time during the reporting period. And as Kim stated, for the first reporting period of each federal fiscal year only, so from October to December, all clients should be counted as new to establish a baseline for that year. So when doing your report in October, the beginning of the federal fiscal year, all clients will be counted as new. Question 5, demographics. This is for the new individuals that were identified in question 4. Now, states and subgrantee organizations are required to update their collection process to track individuals in the service categories provided. OVS requires subgrantees to comply with reporting regulations by January 1st, 2016. Now, in the demographics, note that population categories have changed in some instances from the previous quarterly report. Count each new individual and only one race, ethnicity type as self-reported. Individuals who self-report in more than one race or ethnicity category should be counted in the multiple races category. So for instance, if you have an individual that you're providing services to that self-reports Asian and African American, you will count that individual under multiple races. If no data is collected for a category, enter the number of new individuals as not tracked or not reported. Now, not reported represents that the subgrantee collects this data, but it was not provided or indicated by the person completing the intake form. Not tracked represents the subgrantee is unable to submit this data as requested in the PMT due to the need to change the data collection systems, and efforts are underway to track data as requested. Eventually, the not tracked category will be eliminated. Now, as you see in question 5, there are 3 subcategories. Each total will equal the number of individuals that were identified in question 4. Go back up to show you. Now, in gender, there is an other box also, and if other is checked, provide an explanation below. And question 6 is the types of victimization. Now, this will be for all the individuals that were identified in question 1. Definitions of the different types of victimization are provided in the Appendix B of the subgrantee report, which is also on the files that were provided to you. Individuals may be counted in more than one victimization category. However, do not count an individual more than once for the same victimization type. So, for instance, you're working with an individual who reports to you domestic violence and sexual assault. One individual, two different victimization types. So you would check both the victimization boxes. And if there is a victimization type that is not listed, check other and provide the number of individuals next to other, and then in the box below, give a description. And question 6 also has 3 subcategories. The victimization type. B is the number of individuals receiving services who presented with more than one type of victimization during the reporting period. So, for instance, the example I gave of the individual coming in who is a domestic violence victim and also reports sexual abuse, you would indicate that number in subcategory B. And there is also subcategory C, which is a special classification of individuals. Okay, so subcategory, special classification of individuals. Into the number of individuals who self-identify in one of these categories. If a special classification is not listed, please check other and provide an explanation in the box below. Now, what we had hoped to do when we created this form mirrors what the performance measure track and report looks like. We wanted to keep it in the same chronological order. And as I stated, this form will accumulate totals that you'll be sending in to us each month like you have been doing presently for your monthly tracking report. They will accumulate, so your quarterly report will already be totaled for you. You'll still provide us with that on the 20th of the following month. However, the information that's on the quarterly tracking form will be the same information that you will be entering onto the performance measure tracking form. Now, that completes Section 1 of the tracking form. Section 2 is the direct services, which there is quite a bit of information on here. I'm going to turn it over now to Valerie Roberts, who will be walking you through the first part of direct service.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy.
Before, could I just have a second before Valerie starts? There was a question that was raised about the adults who are abused as children, that there's a category for adults who were sexually abused as children, and apparently there's some confusion about it. When you look at the victimization types on the subgrantee report, and that's in the PDF document that was included. Victimization type A, adults sexually abused, assaulted as children, that should be changed so that any time you have an adult, whether they're sexually or physically abused as a child, it will be included in victimization type A. So we'll make that up, we'll update that. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. I know there's some other questions. I'm going to ask you to hold off and see if we can answer them as the rest of the presentation goes on, and we'll come back to some of them at the end of the session. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Valerie Roberts. I will be going over some of the direct services with you. So, for programs that have more than one contract, you will need to report separately for each contract. So that if you have a sexual assault contract, a domestic violence contract, and a CAC contract, you need to report separately for each contract. All data that you will be submitting should represent your VOCA funds plus your match only. So only report on the VOCA funds and the match. Some agencies use fewer or different groups of services in the subcategories that will be provided for you. You will not be allowed to group services into broader categories. You are, however, reminded that you are required to update your collection process to track individuals and services in the subcategories the federal has provided for you. The data tracking report collects both
Hello, everyone. We got a couple of questions that you could only view the annual tab on the report. If you look at the screen, right now, the reporting document is up there. On the bottom of the report are tabs for different months, quarters, and the annual tab. We now have the October report viewing on the screen. So it looks similar to the annual. There are a couple of additional questions that you'll have to answer on the annual tab, but that's why we gave you individual forms for annual, monthly, and quarterly, because there's a couple of variances. So if you just look at the screen and look at the document up there, we'll all be on the same page.
Okay, thank you, Kim. The data tracking report collects individuals, that's the number of clients that receive the service, and the frequency, the number of times that particular service was provided. So for each category, your first question would be the number of victims served, and the subcategories, how many times a unit of that service was provided. Each month you would save the document for the month, like October, you would save as for the month of October. You have to click Save As, because if you don't, the report will not be accumulative into the next month. OVS staff will place a unit of the service per your signed OVS contract in the box where it says Goal. So where it says Goal and your work plan numbers that you have now, we will place it in that box. We will send you the tracking form by December the 20th, and you will then decide which subcategories pertain to your program and place your unit of services in that box. Remember, you are only allowed to use the subcategories provided. Once the function is done, you will see the percentages of the goal being met. OVS will do the final analysis. You should not be concerned with the breakdown of the services, but the performances of the total subcategory. Keep track of the total numbers of services per subcategory and compare it to the OVS contract goal. So if your goal is 10 and you have 3 in that service listed in the entire subcategory, then we will count the goal as 3. And you would be below the goal. The same thing if the goal was 10 and you have a total of 15 listed in the subcategories, then you were well above the goal. This will be an accumulative total from month to month. Remember to save as on your computer. So let's start with number 7, the number of individuals assisted with a victim compensation application during the reporting period. This includes providing them with the OVS information, even if they did not submit the application, but you've provided the information to them. Simply having an individual come into your program and handing them an application does not qualify as assistance. One requirement for the OVS contract is to ensure compensation information has been provided to victims. Become familiar with the services OVS provides, because if you don't know what we do, how can you explain it to the victim? Count the number of individuals who receive assistance in completing the victim compensation application during the report period. So you're going to count the victims even if they do not complete an application, if they mail the application, if you mail the application in, or if you provide the OVS information form in that box. Number 8. Number 8 says select the types of service provided by your organization during the reporting period. You may need to review the categories provided by the federal to help you determine which service categories you are using. So for an example, you're not a shelter or a safe house, but you have assisted a client with relocation, and you will select this service because relocation is listed in one of the subcategories in D, shelter safe house services. So each month you're just going to put a check in the services where you have provided. Number 9, the total number of individuals who receive services by service type and number of times each service was provided during the reporting period. For each category selected in question 8, enter the number of clients who receive services from your agency during the reporting period. Then for each subcategory within a category, enter the number of times that service was provided during the reporting period. And if the number is 0, 0 is a valid response. Because some clients may receive multiple services, the total number of times that service were provided within a category may be greater than the number of clients who received those services. So example is, if you have one client that was seen in your program on multiple dates within that month and received information and or referrals each time you had an interaction with them. So if you're sending one letter out with information about the criminal justice process, about victim rights, and a referral, you can count a unit of service for these 3 subcategories. Make yourself and your staff aware of the changes. So in A, information and referral, you will always enter the number of individuals who receive the service in this category. This is where OVS will place your work plan so that you currently have. The current work plan states how many victims received INR. Then you will list your actual services you provide in the subcategories listed after this. Enter the number of times. That's where the frequency comes in, the services were provided in each subcategory. So A1 says information about the criminal justice process. You might just be telling them about how the process works. In B8, the child and dependent care assistance, that's assistance provided by the agency. No, let me go back. I had it on the wrong page, excuse me. So A2 would be information about victims' rights, how to obtain notifications. This is where we told them how you register for Vine, Docs, and this also may be where you may put your follow-up. A3, referral to other victim service programs, can also be referrals within your same agency. So if you're a DV program and you have a housing unit in your agency and you want to refer your client over to housing, you can count this as a referral. And some programs had a question at our conference. If they have a DV client in a family that they're referring to get Christmas gifts, so you would also count that there as a referral. A4, referral to other services, supports and resources. This is where you're going to count everybody else that's outside of your agency that you refer the clients for services. You still need to document the services provided, and each service recorded should be able to stand alone. Make it clear Documentation should tell us a story of what you did to assist the client. Let's go to B, personal advocacy and accompaniment. Again, if you notice in the category, it wants you to enter the number of individuals who receive services in the category first, and then they want you to enter the number of times the services was provided. This subcategory counts the same, but again, make yourself aware of the changes, not just about having contact with outside agencies. Services you provide on behalf of or with the client. Your current work plan may fall in several of the subcategories listed. Don't confuse yourself with this. OVS will place your numbers in the box again where it says goal, and then you will put your actual services in the subcategories where you provided the service. Victim advocacy accompaniment to emergency medical care is about you, the advocate, being there, either both, the advocacy or the accompaniment. It's just not to a SANE exam. B2, victim advocacy accompaniment to medical forensic exam. Advocacy on how many times you are providing the service during the accompaniment. So you could be speaking with the nurse. You could be speaking to the doctor about something different that pertains to the victim. Assisting with making follow-up appointments after the discharge with the clerk. FRE exam accompaniment. So in your work plan now, if you have it listed as your goal, we will place your work plan number here. B3, law enforcement interview advocacy accompaniment. That could be with the police, CPS, ACS, campus security, but it's just not the DA. That's listed under criminal justice. B4, individual advocacy, assistance in applying for public benefits in return of personal property or effects. So that could be with DSS, housing, so personal advocacy in your work plan, it will be listed here under this number. B5, performance of the medical forensic exam or interview or the medical evidence collection. That's the same nurse at your program, or if it's a hospital-based program, the ones who are performing if they're on our grant. Immigration assistance with the special visas, continued presence, and that's if you are assisting them in getting these services. The advocate is assisting the client in getting these services. B7, intervention with employers, the creditors, landlords, in academic institutions. And this can be in person, over the phone, by email, fax, or letters.
A couple of questions have come in since Valerie started her presentation. I just wanted to clear up two things. One is, when you get the report from us, from OVS, we'll send you your new monthly reporting form, this new report. We will populate your goals for you because you have a current contract with us with a work plan. We're still obligated to collect data based on that work plan. So the monitors are going to go through each monthly report, and they'll take the goals that you currently have in your Appendix D, your work plan under your contract, and they'll put them on this new report form. Now, having said that, keep in mind that in future years, when we do new work plans, we have new contracts with you, you may want to expand your work plan to include goals for every data element that you collect. So while you're going to give us information now about transportation services or dependent child care or some other service that we currently don't collect, in future years you'll be crafting goals for those objectives. And collecting the data now about them will help you prepare to goals that are reasonable based on what you're actually doing. So you should fill in the data elements, all of them that apply to the services that you've provided and documented, so that you'll have a tool to use when you craft your new goals and objectives. But the goal that you currently have with us on your work plan will be automatically filled in for you by your program. That's one question. The next one is about multiple services in a category. It's possible that one person, going back to the information and referral section, could have a couple of services, a couple of units of information, and a couple of units of referral. So one victim could have 2 under information and 2 under referral if that's what your agency did. But keep in mind, each time you put a number down, it should correspond to the appropriate documentation in the case file. And then one last question that came in was about the reporting period. Keep in mind that you may be working with a victim that you worked with last August and September, but when you got to October 1st of this year, that person should be counted as new. So when you go back and you collect the data for the quarterly report that we're going to send you, you can include all of those individuals that you served in October as new cases. I know that's going to change your objectives a little bit because we asked for the number of new cases, but we're asking for it in the right category now, so don't worry about that. Put down all of the people that you can that you started serving in October as new. Okay, we'll have some more questions and we'll answer them as we go along, but I'll let Valerie continue. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. So to continue in B8, child or dependent care assistance, that's assistance that's provided by the agency. B9, transportation assistance, that's assistance provided by the agency. But this is where you also can count your off-site visits because you are providing this service for the client. You are no longer at your work site, you're off-site with the client, and you're paying for the service. If you drive your company car, you're paying for the service. So you can provide transportation assistance and combine your off-site visit work plan in that category. Interpreter services, whether someone in your agency is the interpreter or you make the call to have one available for the client, you can count the interpreter services. Again, you may be a program that provides many of the services listed. Just remember to count the frequency, the number of times you provide it. In C, emotional support and safety services, again, you want to enter the number of the individuals first who received the service in this category, and then you want to enter the number of times the services was provided in the subcategory. Note the changes, which includes separating in-person and crisis intervention in C1. Crisis intervention is in-person. It includes safety planning now. So it would include the in-person counseling, crisis intervention at the SRE, at the CAC. It's during a crisis only. C2 is hotline and crisis line counseling telephone. So that is where you have your 24-hour hotline and your crisis over the telephone. Your work plan may be placed here if you have a hotline, or on your work plan you say you provide telephone counseling. Your units of service will be placed in that category. C3, individual counseling. Your work plan goal will be placed here if you have counseling on your current work plan. Again, you decide where you have provided the services and place the goal in the correct subcategories listed. On-scene crisis response. It's a community crisis response. When a crisis happens out in your community, that's where you want to put your services there. Therapy. They have expanded therapy to alternative healing, art, writing, play therapy. So again, if therapy is listed on your work plan goal now, you'll place your work plan goal here. Support groups, facilitated or peer. It must be more than one person in order to count support group. If it's just one person, then you want to count it under individual counseling. Emergency financial assistance. This is if the program provides any of the services listed, and this only refers to the outlays from the program. So if the program pays for any of the services that's listed here, changing windows, locks, pays for a taxi, provides for cash, provides food, you count the outlay from the program here and how many times the service was provided. I want to thank you, and I'll turn it over to Yaritza Colleton.
Thank you, Valerie. This is Yaritza Colleton. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the end of the new reporting instructions and definitions. I want to remind you again that categories ask the number of individuals and subcategories ask the number of times. Also be mindful that this is for the reporting period in which the service was provided. Category D is your shelter and housing services. This is also going to be your objective 10, or your shelter. You're going to enter the number of individuals who receive the service in this category. For example, you have mom and two kids. You're going to count that as 3 individuals for that reporting period. Then you're going to enter the number of times the service was provided for each subcategory. Again, please remember to only enter the number of times you provided the following services. D1, emergency shelter and safe house. Enter a cumulative total for all bed nights for all individuals who received this service. For example, you have mom and her 2 kids. They stay 30 nights within that reporting period. Mom will be 30 bed nights. Child 1 will be 30 bed nights. And child 2 will be 30 bed nights. You will count this as a total of 90 bed nights or times for this reporting period. Same will hold true for subcategory D2 below, which is transitional housing. Mom and 2 kids will be a total of 90 nights if they were in transitional housing for 30 days of that reporting period. D3, relocation assistance. This will be the number of times you provided assistance in relocating an individual. So back to mom and 2 kids, if you assist them in relocating them, you will count this as 3 times for the reporting period. Category E, criminal, civil justice system assistance. For category E, you're going to enter the number of individuals who receive the service in this category. Now, with the new federal reporting requirements, this service is now broader and includes services with both your client and with a criminal or civil justice agency. Therefore, you will count each service when you provide it directly to your client or on behalf of your client. It can either be done over the phone or in person. For category E, again, you will only count the number of individuals who received the service. Then, for the subcategory, you're going to enter the number of times the service was provided. E1, notification of criminal justice events. This is any time you give your client any notification related to the criminal justice event of their case. This can be done through email, mail, leave a message. You go ahead and count this anytime you notify them of criminal justice events related to their case.
Then you have E2, your Victim Impact Statement Assistance. E3, Assistance with Restitution. E4 is your Emergency Justice Related Assistance. And this could be anything from emergency order of protection, emergency custody assistance, and violation of order of protection, but it is emergency justice related assistance only. Now for subcategories E5 through E8, you will only count this, your program will only count this if you have a civil legal attorney that is either funded by OVS or used as match on your contract, and they provide the following services. E5, if the attorney provides assistance in obtaining a protection order, they will count that unit of service. E6 will be for any assistance in family law issues, and E7 will be for any other legal assistance provided by an attorney. E8 will be used for any attorney assisting their client in any immigration matter. Again, keep in mind this is for any attorney in your program, either funded by OVS or used as match. E9 is prosecution, interview advocacy, and or accompaniment. This service can be counted as one for the advocacy and one for the accompaniment. The following two subcategories would be if an advocate provides either E10, criminal advocacy, such as assistance with a police report matter, and or accompaniment to the police department. E11, civil advocacy, will be any civil assistance, such as housing court matter or accompaniment to housing court. Again, this can be counted as 2 units of service if you provided both the service. For example, if you took your client to the police department and advocated on their behalf, you would count this service as 2 units or times. With E9, E10, and E11, you will need to clearly document both services. So if you provided them with both the advocacy and the accompaniment, just make sure that you note in their case file that you provided both, and you document the outcome and the scenario. Okay, so that ends that part of the reporting requirements. However, in addition to the new federal reporting requirement, you will need to submit one annual report which consists of 6 questions. This will take the place of the narrative questions you currently submit with your quarterly report. You will submit this by the 20th of the following month that ends the federal fiscal year, which will always be October 20th of whatever year it pertains to. So if you were to go over to your annual tab and scroll down to the very end part of that report, you're going to have your annual reported questions. Question 10 is asking you number of requests for services that were unmet because of organizational capacity issues. This could be anything from support group, therapy, or shelter, or anything that can put your client on a waiting list. Underneath that, you're going to explain the reasons it was unmet. Question 11, does your organization formally survey clients for feedback on services received? Yes or no? If you indicate no, you go ahead and proceed to question 14. Question 12, number of surveys distributed. This could be anything from a handout, mail, electronic methods, phone surveys. You would indicate that number there. Then you're going to explain your organization's method to obtain client feedback. If you ask your client to mail them back, or if you have them fill them out right there when they're with you. Question 13, number of surveys completed. This is the number you get back completely filled out. Question 14, please discuss some of the challenges your victim assistance program faced during the course of the federal fiscal year. This could be anything from criminal justice report issues, transportation in rural counties, not enough staff to treat all services needed for your client, etc. Question 15, please describe some of the services that victims needed but could not be provided, and what are the challenges that prevented those services from being provided. This could be anything, for example, you're a program that you strictly do just domestic violence and you have a victim of sexual assault that is asking for your services and you needed to refer them out. This would be an example of that. Or if you don't provide any therapy within your program, you can go ahead and add that to question 15. And this is the end of the reporting questions definitions. Keep in mind that we are here to assist you. Reference the material that is online on our OVS website often. I'm just going to go over some reminders. Programs are required to comply within the reporting collection requirements by January 1st, 2016. New reports must be used for the period beginning October 1st, 2015. Subgrantees will receive the OVS tracking report from their program monitor by December 20th, 2015 of this year. The current work plan goals will be included in the report. Subgrantees will receive a link from PMT with login information to complete registration once tracking is available. Subgrantees will be required to enter their data into PMT. Data entered must match reports submitted to OVS. The OVS tracking report is due by the 20th of the following month. Subgrantees will be required to click Save As and save the report for the month you enter the information. This will allow the report to be cumulative from month to month. And again, any questions, please contact your program monitor. And this concludes.
Okay, that concludes the formal presentation, but this is Kim again. A few important things that I want to make clear. One is the program monitors are the experts in this report form. If you have questions, you need to direct them to the program monitor. One of the problems that we encounter a lot is that programs will talk to each other and assume that they have the right answer, and they don't come to us directly. We want you to call us. We want you to ask us the questions, and we want to be able to answer them for you. Keep in mind that we will have the frequently asked question list on our website sometime, hopefully next week, along with the recording of this webinar and all of the resource documents. So you should be able to find that on our website next week. The second thing I want to stress, and I can't stress it enough, is that you are only reporting to OVC and to us services provided using OVS funds and allowable match. Some of the questions that came in were about bed nights and should we count shelter nights if OVS does not fund shelter. The answer to that question would be no, because this report should only capture services that are provided using OVS funds and allowable match. Another question that came in, and it's a good one. OVS, your monitor, will put in column E your work plan number. So that's the goal for that particular objective that's on your current work plan. So for example, in B4, your number will go in there. But you're right, one of the questions was, well, what if we can call out information about the other issues in Section B? If we can give you the number of times we intervened with employers, for example, or child or dependent, should we count it under the correct category, even though it will make our objective look like it's low? The answer to that question would be yes. When we review your report, even though your objective may be lower than the target goal, because you are separating out the information, your report is more accurate because you're entering all the information about all the data elements. We understand that it will change the percentage of accomplishment, but we will look at this section in total, not just the one area where we've put your goal. So if you could separate out the individual advocacies that you've provided, please put them in the correct category and let us review the entire form for compliance. A question was raised about whether we will provide a summary of services log for the new report. The short answer is no. And part of the reason is that our funded programs have multiple funding sources and may not be using the summary of services log that we suggest now. There are some programs that have already crafted a new summary of services log, and we may be able to make that available to you, but it's not one that we're requiring you to use, because we need you to track the information however it's best for you to track it at your program. But we can make available to you some of the examples that other programs have crafted to collect all the data. A question came up about family court, and under criminal justice, do you include family court? You know, OVS has broadened the definition for criminal justice report to include family court, even though we knew it was a civil proceeding. So for right now, do not change the way that you define criminal justice accompaniment and services. But in the future, you may see separate definitions that will identify criminal proceedings versus civil proceedings, such as family court. But don't change that definition the way you define that now. Another important question, I think, is about, can OVS count compensation information provided by the VAP under the INR section under A2? No. Right now you count any other information that you provide to victims on compensation goes in the section that says compensation, which is before you get to question 9 says, question 7 says the number of individuals assisted with victim compensation applications during the reporting period. For the purposes of the new reporting form, you will count the victims who you helped with the application and the people that you gave information to about the compensation program. If you then have a victim that comes back to you, and if you have a victim that comes back to you and you help them with an application, maybe you gather some additional documentation sent to OVS, that still goes under personal advocacy where it talks about helping the victim with their rights and remedies with other services. B4. So it would be counted under number 7 or under B4. You will only, and the question was raised, do we have to enter data into the database monthly? The answer is no. You'll have to submit to us the reports on a monthly basis, but you'll only have to log into PMT once per quarter by the 20th of the month following the reporting period and enter the data then. And the only data that you'll be required to add would be the information that's contained on the quarter tab on your spreadsheet. The question came in about Section E4 was said to be used for emergency orders of protection and custody. Section E11 states that it is to be used for when an advocate assists with protection orders. What category should be used, E4 or E11?
E4 is only for emergency.
E4 is only for an emergency justice-related order. So if it's an emergency request for an order of protection, then you would count it under E4. If it's an ongoing, maybe it's a full order, a hearing for a full order of protection, then you would count it under civil advocacy. But E4 is for an emergency situation. The question again comes up about in October, November, and December, if you don't have all the subcategories called out, what do you do or what do you suggest? Well, at a minimum for October, November, and December, you'll have data in at least the categories that we identify as your current work plan. So you'll have that minimum data that you'll put into the system. Starting January 1, you'll be required to start collecting the individual data fields. So when you submit your January, February, and March quarterly report, I would expect to see more detail included in your report. But at a minimum, for October, November, and December, you should at least have the data that we currently collect for your monthly objectives. Now, if you can add additional information, please do. But at a minimum, you should have that information. Question was raised that civil and criminal advocacy are already identified in Section E. And you're right, it is already identified in Section E. And under your current objectives, the ones that we gave you, the definitions that we gave you, we allowed you to count under criminal justice advocacy not only criminal court assistance, but assistance in family court, with CPS, with adult protective services, and we knew those things were not criminal justice related services. They were civil court, but there was no category for it. If you can break it out to count the civil proceedings separate from the criminal justice, then you can start doing it now. But we weren't going to change necessarily your current definition of your objective until next time, until the next annual reporting period. But if you can separate them out, please do, because then you'll have more accurate data which to craft your next work plan. But if you can't, if you're not collecting that data yet, you can still count it under criminal justice advocacy until you can make the change in your statistic and data collection system. The question comes up if a civil legal attorney is funded by OVS and or is used as a match and gives advice and counsel, would that be counted under A1, information about the criminal justice process, or C2, telephone counseling? If the civil attorney is funded by OVS, you can only count the services in A5 through A9 if it's provided by a civil attorney. But if the civil attorney is used as match or is funded by OVS, they can provide all the other services that are on your work plan. There's nothing that prevents them from providing other services. All this does is says that a civil legal attorney is only allowed to provide the services in E5 through E9. So you would treat a civil attorney that's funded by OVS or whose salary is used as match as you would any other employee. And here's an excellent question and one we've struggled with since the beginning. Where does follow-up fall? We've gone round and round about follow-up, and we've tried to figure out where we could add it to the objective report. I think for now, unless you can make a case, we are including it under A2. Information about victims' rights, how to obtain notification, or anything else that you do pertaining to notifying the victim or checking on their progress will go under A2. Follow-up, our definition of follow-up does not easily translate into the new definitions, but for now, if you have a follow-up objective, that information will be captured under A2. I just want to say, this is where everybody needs to stop for a second and take a deep breath. Because I know that it's a lot of detail, I know there's a lot of questions, and I know that you're trying to get so specific about your questions that you're missing the big picture. Stop for a minute, and before you move forward, I want you to read the detail. Read the report form, read the supplemental information that we've provided to you. I know this is a lot to give you all at once without a lot of advanced viewing, but I think you need to really read and digest what is being asked and only answer the questions that are being asked. I know some of you are trying to figure out where every little piece of information will go. As we've always said, make the case to us why you counted something under one of the objectives, and we'll either tell you that it's correct, or we'll show you where it should go, or we'll tell you that it shouldn't be counted there. And we'll do the same thing with the new report. The monitors will help you go through it line by line when they visit your programs and when they're talking to you about the objectives. So don't get so hung up on the little nuances of your program and where do you count one piece of service that you lose sight of the big picture. Read the questions and make a case for why you're counting something under one of the service areas. I'm seeing a lot of where would advocacies for CPS, where would advocacies for this go and that go and immigration and shelter bed nights and again, the only services reflected on this report are services provided with OVS funds or with allowable match. So if you have a domestic violence program, you can provide all of the services, but you don't include shelter in your objective because you have no OVS funds supporting the shelter, then you would not count the shelter bed nights. As for the advocacies, read the definitions and place the data where you think it best fits. And when we're looking at the CPS and APS, those advocacies will go under B3. B3 says, what? The advocacy accompaniment. Right, under advocacy and accompaniment, law enforcement interview advocacy accompaniment. If you're doing an advocacy with CPS or you're doing an accompaniment with them, it would go under B3. One of the questions that came up is what category would phone counseling go under?
C2.
Phone counseling is C2. And would that normally be therapy clients? No, therapy is in person, and it's separate, it's C5. We've got time for just a few more questions before we finish. It will take us about 10 minutes to get back to our desks, so wait 10 minutes before you call your monitor, because they won't be at their desk. And I know some of you have probably already dialed the first 6 or 9 numbers of their telephone number, so please, before you call, I encourage you and urge you to take a deep breath first, and then read everything again. Read it a second time, have somebody else in your office read it, and then call us. Because I think that you're going to find that this report is more intuitive than the last one. I think it captures more of what you're doing. It really is reflective of what we've heard from advocates out in the community for the last 20 years about capturing the detail of what they do for crime victims, in addition to the number of victims that they serve. Because we've all had that victim one victim has taken up 6 hours in a day between a court accompaniment, a forensic exam accompaniment, and a counseling session. And on the quarterly report, it was only reflected as one. But now there'll be other things that you'll be able to count as well. So please take a breath, read the detail. We'll have one last question. Will the presentation be made available for staff who are unable to attend today? That question's an easy one. The presentation was recorded. It'll be posted to the OVS website along with the materials and the frequently asked question log from today's webinar. If we didn't get to your question, we will get to it and follow up in writing on the frequently asked question log that will be on our OVS website. Again, your monitors will be contacting you soon with your new monthly report form with your work plan numbers already populated on there. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can call us. Additionally, we hope to get out to the regional coalitions to reinforce the reporting requirements and answer any of your questions, so you'll have ongoing opportunity to talk to us about the new reporting requirements. Again, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your service to crime victims in New York State. I thank you for your willingness to change, and your comments are very seriously taken. Your questions will be answered, and we are here to help you succeed, and it's our intention to help you complete good, accurate data reports in the coming year. So again, on behalf of myself, my team of monitors and OVS, thank you, and we will be in touch.